Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hey and hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we bring you great guests to talk about real estate and everything related to money and investing and how we ultimately create generational wealth. And today we have another great guest who gave me the pleasure of being on his podcast. And so today I invited him to come on ours. His name is Martynas from Upskill RE. Martynas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Axel. Very much appreciated. And yes, I did enjoy our conversation and the prior conversation that we had before we started recording.
Yeah. So for the audience, what we discovered, Martynas and I think are two people who can for hours and hours and hours. And if we had like maybe, I don't know, a beer or a glass of wine or stuff like that, we could probably spend days just chatting with each other. So it's really cool. I don't know if anybody listening or watching us on YouTube, maybe once in a while has a situation where you get to meet somebody and it's like a immediate connection, kind of like vibrating on the same frequency or something like that. So Martynas, I think the audience would love to know from you a little bit, how did you end up in your role, what you're doing, what is it, and more also, what was the evolution for you to get into Upskill RE and what you guys are doing?
Thanks for asking, Axel. And again, I greatly appreciate you for being here on the show. As I mentioned, I'm trying to catch you up again with episodes that you have, because those are great episodes. I've been seeing 315th or 13th episode you just launched. So it's definitely a great podcast. And what you mentioned before, providing people that place, that platform where they can continue come in and learn about these different ways to grow their wealth, right? Because it is kind of important, right? Because eventually we're going to retire and we don't want to be one of those people. And obviously, sadly, it is taking place, and maybe I'll tell just a quick story and transition to my story as well. But me and my wife were at the store. That's before our daughter was born. We were buying a few groceries back in my country, and we're just waiting in line. This grandma was, counting euro cents, right? And really and she's looking at it, and I see, the sadness. It's sad to see that this person who lived entire life now has to count pennies to buy bread and a few other items, right? And everybody's waiting in a queue, other people getting angry. You know how it is. Eventually she paid, and I said to my wife, I saw how you were looking. What have you thought about that situation? Oh, it's sad that she's old, and she should not supposed to be in the situation. I said, but do you want to know the reality of it? Which is not going to sound nice. What's the reality? Yeah. I said, that person made a lot of bad decisions, especially around their finances. And that's the reality. And, we like it, we don't like it, but that's what it is. And eventually all of us are going to retire. But again, my personal best quote that I like is the best math that we can learn is how to calculate our future cost of our current decisions. So those type of decisions that we're making right now, today, I'm not going to listen to Axel's podcast, or I'm just going to do whatever. And, that's going to bring us eventually to that point, right? And there's so many people who are making bad decisions, but again, so many people who are making those great decisions. So I really want to applaud you for that, for putting out content that helps people to make those great decisions. But again, coming back to my story, there is obviously a long and a short story. So maybe I'll go with the short because we just have so much time. But I've been involved in a lot of different things. I probably changed 20 different jobs, probably even more. It actually got to the point that employees used to start asking me, like, what is wrong with you? Literally to my face. Like, why are you changing so many jobs? That's before I even found business, before I even found self-development, found that, this different part of life actually exists. But what I was doing with this entire time, I was actually looking for that. But I didn't know what to hold on to. So I worked in offices, I worked warehouses, fast food, just anything that I possibly could do, right? And eventually, I remember this guy that was working in the office. He was working in a factory. I just spoke with a guy like, hi, just, very professional basis. We're just colleagues at work. But then one day the guy asked my number. The other day I was at home. The guy texted. I don't speak with the guy. And he's like, would you like to meet up for a cup of tea? For a cup of coffee? I'm like, there's something happening here. This guy never speaks with me. He wants to meet up. And I was like, what's happening? So basically, I went to meet the guy, and the guy was sitting with another older gentleman. And I was like, okay. So I'm sitting down and these guys start to ask me questions. What do you do? What are you going to do with your life? And I'm like, what do you guys want? And they start telling me about this multi-level marketing company that they're working for. And my light bulb just went off. I was like, I told the guys, I said, I don't know what the hell you just explained to me. I know nothing, but I want to be part of it. Because one thing that struck me the most is the positivity that these people had. Because when this guy, the older fellow, stood up and we were going to order coffee, the way the person was communicating with the person that was making coffee, he was calling her by her name, but just the effort and the honesty and the positivity, because I wasn't seeing that around in the places that I was at least hanging, right? So that positivity and the mindset, so that's what attracted me, because I thought, okay, there's something there. And obviously I became part of that company. I did that not to do the business, which obviously I did, but that helped me a lot in terms of my personal development, because that introduced me to all these great books that a lot of people on your show talk about, starting with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and many other great books, Think and Grow Rich and so forth. So I read as much as I could. I went to seminars, but what I did, I pushed myself, be very, very uncomfortable. I'd get comfortable with being uncomfortable. What that means is meeting people, right? Cold calling, meeting people face to face, presenting the business plan, which before I was one of the shyest people that you could meet, right? So I had to kind of work on myself in that way to really redevelop and reshape myself, right? As most of us who have business, we have to do that. I remember I was sitting, and every time I did a meeting, I was internally analyzing what I did, what I could have done, better, what I did wrong. And every single time, kind of after the meeting, after the call, I'm analyzing myself, seeing how I can improve, right? That was a big part for me, the biggest part. I was having that aha moment. I was like, oh my God, some months ago, I was, there, and now I'm doing this. So it's like, what else I can do? It kind of becomes that aha moment, and it happens all the time, even if you have a business. You break through this another threshold, you break another wall, and it's like, oh my God, I can do this. So how about if I do this, right? And it's incremental growth. So after that, I just said, okay, let me try a bunch of things. So I go and I worked as a real estate agent. At the time, had no transport, no car, and I started calling these agencies. And this one guy, he's like, okay, let's meet up. I go to this office, tiny office, like it's the size of almost like this room, and there's only two of them. The owner and there's another real estate agent, so tiny company. But I came in, I said, look, I'm driven, I want to do this. I already had great experience with phone calls, dealing with people, meeting with people. So I said that those skills are transferable anywhere. So I came in and I started just closing the house, and the guy was just like, look, I don't know how you're doing this. You have no car, you never worked this before. This guy had a car, he worked this before, and he even had that many listings as you have. But again, those are the skills, the traits that every successful business person needs, right? So like communication is definitely number one, which is trickles down into everything. Phone calls, email conversations, LinkedIn conversations these days, social media, talking on a podcast. And obviously after that, it was just kind of accelerated to different things, because I'm 35 right now. But that probably from 20 to 30, it was like all of that testing, what I can do, what else I can do, and just collecting experiences. So worked there. Then I worked in Aerospace and Defense sector for almost 2 years. So we did very interesting things there as well. But obviously real estate was always part of that. But going back to me working as an agent, that also had a media company where we provided turnkey services for a lot of the multifamily companies in the US as well. It was always there. So after the last company involvement, almost 2 years working in the aerospace and defense sector, I said, no, I really have to come back here, because that was me. Since the Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm talking the cash flow quadrant. You're an employee, self-employed, big business, or investor, right? So those kind of the pieces that still drives me.
I think what you're describing is also rare, and I want to thank you for describing it. But I also think it's inspirational, because too few people who still have the opportunity, because to some extent, I believe it also includes where are you in your life? How independent are you? How much do you have already started having a family and having kids and having obligations and all those kind of things? So the earlier in life you can basically go on this somewhat exploration, and maybe yours was a little more intense than most others. But what I find in our clients, when I talk to people who are interested in our mentoring and real estate investing offers, there are, in my opinion, way too many people who say, well, I ended up in where I'm at more based on circumstances and not really based on a really conscious decision. I know and I want to do exactly this. Now, the important thing is, it sounds to me that you would say now, okay, you would have maybe also never thought, but you found something that really resonates and inspires you. And too many people, I think, end up in some situation, in some job, in some occupation that, if they are really honest, is not really quite the passion. And to me, this is also a little bit this kind of carrot that the media is always dangling in front of us to say, when you finally retire, then you can finally do what you really want to do because you didn't have the opportunity earlier to do it. And which is part of the reason why I want to help people to get to that point. If they really live that life, get to that point as soon as possible and don't wait, right? So can you describe a little bit what your like day-to-day looks like these days?
A lot of conversations, talking with people for different services and products that we have internally in the company. So it would be, again, having people on the podcast. So as I mentioned, we probably 220, I want to say, in terms of podcast count at the moment. There's obviously on-demand course platform that we're growing at the moment, and it kind of provides value for two types of people. So again, if you're a newbie in terms of real estate, understanding what real estate can do for you, maybe you heard about Airbnb or construction, but you know nothing about it. We have obviously a podcast for those type of things. We have articles for those type of things, but courses is something that you can learn on demand, again, from professionals who might have 10, 20 or more years of experience that can really help you to save time, right? For a fraction of cost that maybe some people are charged for mentoring or whatnot. But obviously both are needed still. So we have that part, but we also have businesses, again, who might have internal teams. It could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be HR. And again, those courses also supplementary for those types of businesses who are looking to scale and maybe kind of train, retrain, add something onto existing team in terms of new knowledge. So we have those types of courses that we're kind of adding as we speak. I think we're currently right now at, I want to say 150, around 200-ish, because the way the process works with our instructors, we actually, it's a very turnkey service. So we help, rather than uploading courses on our platform, we actually handle that from our side, which saves a lot of time because a lot of people have maybe 20, 30, 40 or more courses, right? So really save the time. We do the marketing and the promo for them. So that's that. But we also have events coming up. So we have a few events coming up in October, which, by the way, if you go to upskillery.com, you can find both events. There is an option to attend both of the events for free, unless you want to have on-demand access and access all the resources, the contact details of speakers and whatnot. So that becomes paid. But there is a place to attend live events for free, which we have AI and marketing events. And as I mentioned before, branding, it's still an issue for some companies. Some people, they're looking to scale, so they still don't know how. And now we have AI, these two big letters that people talk about, but have no clue what's happening because there's so many changes. So we really want to bring 110 people from different parts of the world and to really put them in one place so people can watch that live or on demand and really tap into from real estate side, right? If you have a boutique, maybe agency or construction company, or you're a multifamily syndicator, or do any sort of a real estate business, you can really learn some good things from some of the experts that we're going to bring in. Some of the experts that work with big brands like Zara, Lidl, and they kind of do back-end AI marketing stuff for those big brands. So it could be some influencers.
I think you're doing a great service, and in that sense, the name Upskill is also really appropriate because anybody who is really interested to up their skills, and skill, I think if you really were to go and try to define it, means not just you can do something, but you also know how to do something. And for the how to do something, there is just no other way than learning, right? And so yeah. I always said I will for the rest of my life, and always been a lifelong learner. And most people who do that, it's not just exciting to discover new things, especially like you mentioned with AI. I mean, that's a whole new world that is opening up. And I'm actually slightly saddened that the media has, again, in their typical polarizing way, basically some relatively few say, well, that's a promising thing that we can all be excited about, but the majority is trying to use fear and scare us about it, right? And so you and your organization offering
some of them is reality, by the way, because we did an event a couple months ago with that was more B2B, where we had some of the companies like LinkedIn, Pinterest, Prudential, Atlassian, and Autodesk, Meta, like spoke virtually at this event, and we wanted to tap into their knowledge and see what they're working on in terms of marketing. And some of the people talked about Gen AI, just AI in general, maybe SEO, customer support, or what website design, you name it. We try to cover that, and that's already available on demand. But a lot of those people, even though they talk on LinkedIn and say how great AI is, but when we have the private conversations, some of them are really concerned what the future of their job is going to look like. Things are being automated. Talking about, Lidl, for example, back in my country, or I think there's a different shopping chain network as well, where they introduced these self-checkout services, right? How many places you go if you travel by public transport? There used to be a human. Now there is just a box on a wall, right? So things are really changing. And a lot of people in the marketing space and in other places as well, where things can be automated by using AI, are fearful of their, future careers.
Yeah. Well, if I'm honest, I have to say, sometimes I feel like, and I've been accused of this, so I know how it feels to be accused of it, that a lot of people aren't quite willing yet to really think as big as possible. Is AI going to be scary? Yeah. Is AI going to be potentially, at least initially, reducing labor? Yes. But I'm always encouraging anybody in the audience to say, be willing to think bigger and see the promise and the opportunity that could come out of it, because I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm now a grandpa, like I have a little grandson who is not even a year old. I wouldn't mind a vision where he in his life never has to exchange time for money.
Yeah, well, unless he does what he really loves, and he feels, but 99% of the people, yeah, of course. But there are people who really enjoy working at Burger King. There's those types of people, just because it's very difficult. Life is difficult, but easy at the same time. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, well, you said the important word. If I do something that I enjoy, just imagine you could take the whole money aspect out of it.
Yeah.
Right? If you just go there because you enjoy it, it doesn't matter what it is. And if you need food, you go to the thing that makes you food. If you want, a drink, you go to the thing that makes you a drink. If you want entertainment, you go to the play. But not having this kind of exchange means in the way all the time that separate those who are somehow getting more and those who are somehow getting less. I think that is a pretty intriguing vision to say, I want to do the things I enjoy to the benefit of myself and everybody else I might be helping with it, and leave the whole money thing on the side and don't even have it.
You see, the problem with that, Axel, is I see that because the system, it's been around for such a long time. We have been in a place back in the day where there was a barter system, and we talked about that last time when you talk about that. Somebody's as great at SEO practices and they can do something from a website. Maybe we can exchange services. I can do coaching for them for free. So that system still works to some extent these days. But we actually used to do that way back in the day, right? There was no monetary exchange. That was the monetary exchange. And obviously we came up with gold coins and different forms of currencies. And now we have dollars that before used to be backed by gold. But obviously Nixon, thank you, he took off that of the gold standard. And now we have paper by paper, right? And people are not trying to, they're really starting to see through this system. And there's obviously going back to YouTube, all the videos are available. You mentioned when you talked about gold, silver, instantly into my mind popped up Mike Maloney, who's one of the rich dad, poor dad people. And I read his book, Gold and Silver, which people think they talk about. The book talks about investing in gold and silver, which actually, it just talks about monetary system, how the system works, how the treasury works, how the Federal Reserves work. So it's a very good book for people who really want to see how the system works and what it favors. I'd really, encourage that for people to go and read or watch Mike Maloney videos. He has a great series on YouTube as well. But the system, the way it is created, because of educational system, where now it becomes a completely different story. We're just printing like this ideology that you have to go and find a profession, find the work, which now a lot of people are starting to open up to different, ideologies, the ones that you're describing, that we can maybe do something, really in different type of exchange, and maybe we can make money different ways. We have now technology that we might leverage and kind of just live the life without actually going through this corporative way of earning money, retiring, but while
exactly. Well, that's basically my point. If I go back to the beginning, I believe one of the biggest inventions of humanity was to actually create something that's called community. And within a community, everybody has their place, everybody applies themselves to the best of their ability in support of the community. Only when communities started to be engaged with other communities was there any need to barter or have money or all those kind of things. And that's what I meant when I mentioned the Star Trek thing, because they basically just said, what if the whole globe or the whole Earth is basically one common community? Then we don't need all this stuff. Now, coming back to Earth and on the ground, Martynas, if somebody wants to get in touch because they're interested in what you guys are doing or they're interested in the on-demand programs, how do they do that?
Simply go to upskillery.com. You can find everything in one place. It's kind of a hub for all of that. Obviously, we have podcasts, we have courses, we have events coming up. A lot of it that we do is free, even starting with the courses. Courses start at free to high as you would like to go, and you can find us there.
Yeah, that's very good, and thank you for sharing that. So one last thing I want to ask for, like maybe the last 2 minutes we have together, is you have done a lot in the real estate space. You have done events, you have interviewed people, you have your podcast and so forth. If you had to put something forward where you would say somebody who is early in their development, in their basically interest, but they are fundamentally interested in real estate, what would you say is the best path to get really into it and get a better understanding and maybe make it part of your life?
I would definitely say go to somebody that's done it before. That's how I did it. I put out some questions as I'm looking for people that has knowledge in this particular space. Some people replied. I said, let's chat on the phone. I spoke with this individual. We did a barter system. We exchanged value. I provided value for him, he provided for me, and that opened just incredible amount of doors, opportunities, broaden my perspective, my mindset. So, I would say just go creative. You mentioned, again, if you're listening, you're looking to tap into somebody like Axel, just to mention that again, you're also looking to do the barter system, right? So for me, that's what worked. I'm sure there's a bunch of other different strategies, but in my personal experience, it worked the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is great advice. I would have said the same thing. Find somebody you resonate with and learn from them. And there might come a point where they taught you what they can tell you, and then you find the next person. But being on the hunt for people who can demonstrate that they have done what you are interested in doing is the best way. Thank you so much, Martynas, for sharing this.
Thank you, Axel.